Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to Our Dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore, and I am really excited about our guest today. These types of episodes, I get to talk to some amazing people doing amazing things, building the lives that they don't want to take a vacation from, and they're going to share their story with us. And we've got Kristeen and Kevin Owens as part of our Vodyssey mastermind group, and appreciate you guys joining us. I'm really, really excited for you guys to share your story and your journey so far into the vacation rental game. So thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So you guys, when we have these types of episodes, and, you know, I love when this is my favorite part of what we do is really just being able to be a part of a journey with people that are going out and changing their lives and taking that leap of faith and saying, hey, listen, I want to do something different. Right. And it's really fun to hear the story. And I don't like to tell the story for you. And so you guys will do a much better job telling the story than I will. But give us an idea of background, where you guys come from, you know, what got you interested in the short-term rental game, and then we'll dive into the actual journey itself. So give us a little bit of a background about the Owens family.
Well, I guess we could start really quickly with what we do, and then we'll kind of talk about how we stumbled upon you and Vodyssey. So I work for a small company and handle sales and marketing and all of the operations of that, and have been doing that for a few years after working in a university. So my background came from education and working in that setting, and then got into business.
Yeah, and I'm a plant engineering manager, and so I've been working in manufacturing for a very long time. So we're just the run-of-the-mill people out there, you know, working hard every day and raising a family. We have 3 children. We have a daughter that's 14, and then we have twins that are 11, boy and girl twins. So you know how that is. So
I love that. Yeah, we got the 12-year-old twins. We're a year ahead of you, but very dialed into that world for sure.
Yeah, definitely exciting. So, you know, and as a family, we like to do things together. And, you know, really how this whole thing started for us, we went on vacation and we went to an area and we absolutely fell in love with the area. I mean, it was one of those things that you go on vacation and it's like, how can we do this more often? You know, we're at a certain point in our careers and our lives, and you know, like I said, we just fell in love with the place. You know, it was a private island. There was all kinds of things to do. It was tranquil. It was relaxing. And on the way home, we started having those conversations, right? And one thing led to another. We're looking, hey, how can we learn more about what it takes to buy something like this and rent something like this and have someone else pay for something that we actually love to do, right? And enjoy this type of lifestyle asset. Well, we stumbled across the podcast, right? And so that started the ball rolling. And then time went on, you know, a few months, you know, after listening to some podcasts, we started talking about things. And the next thing you know, we're like, we don't really know what direction to go, right? So we thought we need some coaching. We need somebody to help us along with this journey, right? We still didn't know where we wanted to go. We didn't know if we wanted to be at the beach or in the mountains. And so we started going through this process, and then finally we said, you know what, let's go ahead and let's join this group. Let's see what we can extract from it, so we can be as equipped as possible to go on this journey. And then that's where it all starts,
well,
right?
We wanted to commit, right? It's kind of one of those things where we're not risk takers. Let's just we're not gamblers, we're not risk takers by nature at all. And so we kept, seeing other people and hearing stories, and I don't know, just it just kept resonating. It's at some point I feel like we're just gonna have to take some a leap of faith or something. I felt something pushing us that it's if we never take a risk, nothing's ever gonna come from it. We're just gonna keep saving our money and doing, just keep doing what we're doing, which is okay. Right. But I just felt like there was something kind of pushing us to just take that leap. And I think that's kind of when we reached out, talked to Dave, and we're like, okay, this is scary, but let's do this. I just feel like we're supposed to do this.
So when it's scary because it's something brand new, right? And it feels like, you mentioned, you guys are but we're both working full time. We're raising a family. We're doing all these things. Any investing experience in the past, like anything that you like, this was all the first time, right?
Yeah, not any real estate type investing
Yeah.
or anything like that. Not anything crazy. Typical 401k stocks, things
Yeah.
like that. But nothing that,
Mhm.
we're going to invest in that.
Nothing that we really had like that
Right.
were that involved in, that
Correct.
wasn't just kind of,
Right.
just set it and forget it kind of things.
Right. And it does feel like this big leap of faith. It does feel risky. In fact, my dad always says, Sean, I'm not like you. I can't, I don't take the risks that you take. And I always think it's funny when he says that to me, because in my opinion, I'm really, really conservative. Like I'm really like, I feel like I'm like one of the most conservative guys that I know. Like I want to have all the numbers, all the data, all these different things. But when it's something new, and it's funny because when I put all this together, we started really doing this, and we've been doing it for a long time. I still feel like, okay, I'm just an average everyday guy trying to build lifestyle and financial freedom. And that's who we love to work with. Right. And that's who, it's this journey of like what most people don't know the story of why I named our company Vodyssey is it was called Lifestyle Asset University, and the state of Utah called me and said, you can't use the word university in a business name unless you're actually in a university or college. There's like 4 states that don't allow that. Utah happens to be one of them. And that's where my LLC was formed and where we live. So I said, okay, well, I really gave some thought to the word and words that we could use in our business name and everything else. And I love the word Odyssey because it's this epic journey. It's got these ups and downs and challenges and all these different things along the way. And at the end of the journey, there's usually some big payoff, right? But really an Odyssey is just this big, long journey. And then I threw the V in front of it because it's vacation homes. And so that's how we came up with Vodyssey. But at the end of the day, that's why I like to talk about this journey that you're on. And that's where it starts for so many people is just, we go on vacation and a light bulb says, hey, somebody else owns this house. Somebody else is doing this. Maybe it could be me, right? And it spurs that question. And then one thing leads to another, podcast, calls, all these different things that lead to another. But when going back to the conservative nature and the taking some risk out of it, that's what we're trying to do, is give you that knowledge and that path forward so that you can feel like, okay, I'm not just taking all my money and putting it on black or red, right? This isn't supposed to be a gamble. We want to be able to take this process and remove as much risk as possible, even though there's always going to be risk there. But sometimes having enough things to remove some risk and underwriting and all those different things and other people that are doing it, you have that comfort level to say, okay, I'm going to take that first step. I'm going to take the second step. Right. And that's what this is kind of about. And so it's interesting to hear. And I appreciate that because there's so many people that just get comfortable not taking that first step. And I love that you're able to, kind of share what got you past those first steps. And sometimes that is surrounding yourself with other people that are doing it.
Yeah, the community piece was a big part of it, right? Having access to people who are knowledgeable, going through the underwriting process. We looked at a lot of properties. If you saw our Google Drive, you would say, "Oh my goodness, you guys are doing underwriting on all these different areas, different places, different bedroom formats, right? To see what was going to make sense." And so it was challenging. You guys talk about don't get lost in some of the analysis and the analysis paralysis piece. And we were there at some points. We're like, hey, we've got to step away from this for just a minute. We've got to back up. We got to think about what we really want. What's the lifestyle piece that we want to be a part of? Because then at one point we get to just looking what's going to be profitable. But then it's like, well, we don't really like that. We don't see ourselves in that place, right?
Yes.
So it's, first, where do you want to be? Then does it underwrite? Does it make sense? And having those tools and access to people who have knowledge about stuff really helped us along the way too.
Well, he's a data guy, so all of that stuff was huge for him. I feel like we would have never gotten to this point. Just like he wasn't just going to push all his chips in,
Right. Yes.
I'm more the feeler and of the two, but also not super risky, but I'm definitely the feel things first, and he's the data guy. It's what he does for a living. And so I feel like that was really helpful for me to learn that piece of it, because that was one of the things that we committed to, was like we've walked through every step of this together. So like we weren't allowed to watch any of the course without the other one. We walked through the class together, sitting right here, from, class 1 all the way through. We didn't do any of it by ourselves. And so that was cool, though. I feel like for me to be really in the trenches and learning all of that stuff and seeing the data stuff that isn't really my nature necessarily, and seeing, okay, this does work and this is why it works and this is what we're looking at it. And I feel like that was huge for him to just like have that that foundation. Just like I said, that's how he operates. He looks at numbers, he needs that. And so it was just good to have that. It was really good information that you guys help equip us with. So it didn't feel risky once we got in there and got educated.
Right. And there's this episode could last a long time, just so everybody who's listening just knows, because I'm going to try to unpack things because this is really interesting to me. And there's a few things you said that I want to unpack and not let kind of go by the wayside. One is that how awesome it is that you guys committed to watching and doing this together. Like you said, we're not taking one step without the other one. And when you're making big decisions like that, that is often overlooked. And we think, well, you just go ahead and do it, with spouses, or, one of us will usually take the lead and the other one's kind of there. But then when the decision has to be made, both of you are making the decision. And sometimes it's hard if one person was left out of, the baseline foundation of training or the knowledge base. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that is awesome that you guys did that. And I love that you brought that up, because some of the most successful students we have, some of the biggest success stories we have, that is a common thread that we find, is that families are doing this together. And in what's really fun about that for me is, you go through the good times and the bad times together, and you grow so much together. And there's times where most of the time you both don't have bad days at the same time. Sometimes we do, but we need the other one to have a good day while we're having a really bad day, because bad days happen, right?
We did that a lot.
One of us would be ready to give up. There were definitely emotional words said and all the feelings felt. And there would be days where one of us would want to give up and the other one would be like, no, we're not giving up. We're, whatever. And it's like, I'm just venting. I'm not really giving up or whatever. But there was a lot of days where we traded off who was ready to give up and who was, the cheerleader.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you're there. I mean, that's what it's about, right? That's what just life is about, is having the right partners by our side to be able to go through those different journeys together with. And that's what we sign up for, frankly. Right. Mm-hmm. And whether it's short-term rentals or anything in between, that's what we're there for each other for. So I love that you shared that part of it. The second piece that I think is really critical, that very, very few people understand, and we talk about it a lot, and it is it's a very small part of the puzzle in the very beginning of the process. The steps that you would take is, one, there is an art and a science to this. And it's not all numbers driven, and it's not all, touchy feely and let's just go with our gut. Right. There's a mix of both of it. And naturally, investors that are like strict investors, when they get into this space, they want to start with the data. And we start with the data, and you can really, really spin your wheels for a long time. And so you guys experience that, it sounds like. And I always tell people, start with like the feeling side of it. Like when you guys hear me say, how do I select the right markets? We say, select the markets that you want to own a vacation home in, right? And whether you plan on using it or not, tell me the markets you want to own a vacation home in, and then we can figure out if that market's investable, if it has good opportunities property-wise with revenue and acquisition prices, all those different things. Because if you just start with the data, there's so many markets out there that it's completely overwhelming, right? There's just too much. And so I appreciate that you brought that up, Kevin, to say, I started here and our spreadsheets were a mile long, and we had to kind of take a step back and say, even though, middle of Kentucky underwrites really, really well, that's not where we wanted to be in our situation, right? And somebody else might want to be there, and it could be a really great investable market. But you guys had to it sounds like you kind of learned that by taking that step, which a lot of people do, is running a lot of numbers in the beginning, instead of saying, give me 4 or 5 markets that you really want to be in, because we always second guess that we're going to choose the wrong market when we do that, right? And it's natural that we're like, especially if we've never done this, we're like, it can't be that simple in the beginning. Now, it's not that simple, and you guys know that, because you're going to layer on the data after that. But just flip-flopping that order is huge for a lot of people in the acquisition phase, is to start with the markets that you would be interested in owning in, and then let's figure out how investable they are, how they fit our property goals, and all those different things. And so that's a very small little nuance that a lot of people don't really understand how you take that. And there is an art and a science to this. And both of them have to be there, especially in the short-term rental game, because this is an experience type of a business. So that the feelings have to be there. The emotion has to be there.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience for us along the way, going through that. So we enjoyed that process because we thought that it was going to really lead us into the area that we ultimately wanted to be, right? And so we knew that there were two areas. One was a beach area and the other one was a mountain area. The mountain area we were unsure about, right? We scoured we're 4 hours away from the Smokies. So we scoured every market in North Carolina, all the way surrounding the Smokies, down through Blue Ridge, Georgia, and a couple other places in North Georgia. We looked at so many areas. And ultimately, when we thought about it, it's like, all right, so how much money do we want to spend? And then, where we know we like both areas. So how much money do we want to spend? And what can we get the most bang for our buck for that we're going to be able to enjoy, or maybe even going to be a little bit more profitable and cash flow a little bit better? And ultimately, it led us down to the panhandle of Florida, where we love vacation. We vacationed down there for many, many years. And it was just a matter of us then deciding what area of that panhandle, right?
And it was depending on too, we were kind of looking simultaneously in the mountains and the beach, and it was basically inventory driven as well.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like but we realized we liked both of these areas and would have been happy in both. But so then we were trying to keep our eggs in a couple baskets and say, okay, well, depending on what comes on the market first, we're going to kind of pick based on that. And so, I mean, we were running kind of down two roads, not, multiple, but just kind of narrowed it to the panhandle and the mountains, and then continued to watch inventory in both places and go make multiple trips both places.
Yeah.
And then in the end, it just kind of was the way it worked out based on what was available, what met our needs, what excited us and whatnot. And just feel like we were led where we were supposed to be.
Where did you, just out of curiosity, because you mentioned in the very beginning, what really spurred this is you stayed in one in an area that you fell in love with. Was that either of these two markets? Was
No.
it? Yeah.
Well, we did look at that.
We did look at that market.
It was pretty pricey.
It was very pricey. And so we love South Carolina, right? And so it was one of those things we talked about, eventually moving to South Carolina. I've looked at some jobs in that area previously. And it was Seabrook Island. It was just south of Charleston. Gorgeous area. Absolutely loved it.
Wildlife everywhere, like deer in people's front yards laying there that didn't even move when you rode your bike by and stuff.
Yeah.
But
so that was we really liked it. So we looked at that. And we looked at a few other areas, but it was just we weren't willing to put that kind of money up.
Right.
And it's a longer drive.
It's a longer drive, right?
That's like 12-hour drive for us.
Oh yeah, much different.
8. And so that was definitely a big factor. What can we enjoy more? Because we could get there on a long weekend. It's hard to justify a 12-hour drive for 2 days,
Yeah.
So that was a big factor too.
So that moved us over to, we looked at that. We also looked around the Smokies. We looked a lot around the Smokies. And of course, everybody from around this area, they travel to Gatlinburg, Sevierville, things like that. And while we like that area, matter of fact, we were there just a couple of years ago. We said, let's look at something that's a little bit smaller, that's a little bit more quaint and a little bit of a slower pace. So we started looking in areas like Bryson City, North Carolina. We looked in Blue Ridge, Ellijay, and things like that. We found some nice places that we liked. We did some underwriting on it. We found that the underwriting was a little bit more challenging there for what we were looking at, at least for us. And we found some really cool places that we liked. And matter of fact, we put some offers in places in the Blue Ridge area, as well as put offers down in the Panhandle of Florida. What we found was it's a very, very competitive market out there. You could put an offer in, or you'd be a day late, and someone already had the place, locked up or paying cash for a place. Or people weren't willing to negotiate, right? There were things that maybe were overpriced just a little bit. And so we ran into a lot of challenges. I can't even tell you how we put offers on numerous places. And some of them didn't work out, but we honestly feel like it was a blessing for some of them because of where it led us, right? It led us into another market. We're like, all right, that one's out. What are we going to do? We really like this area. So what are we going to do? And then after going through all that, we were looking at some different markets, said, let's make a trip, just she and I, and go down there and look at Panama City, Miramar Beach, Santa Rosa Beach, like the 30A area, and Destin. We had a bunch of properties we had listed that we were going to look at. We had our real estate agent hook us up with their assistant. They were out of town, and we said, all right, let's look at all these places.
We showed ourselves some of the places, like she couldn't be there, so we went to some open houses, and she was like sending us the codes, and we were literally like we were being our own real estate agent. We were showing ourselves the places, and we'd be like, cool, check no, or like this, whatever. Right. And so really we had this agenda, but we kind of a little fly by the seat of our pants, which isn't usually us. But I got an email from you get those automated emails from your realtor, or we did at least. I'm sure lots of them.
Oh yeah. Everybody gets those. Yeah.
And I got to where like I almost like quit looking at them, because it was like it was always a condo, which wasn't going to work for us for our loan, and I just got discouraged, and so I quit looking at those. And we had a day where we had looked at stuff. We were supposed to, I think, meet the actual realtor's assistant the next day. And I had gotten an email automated the day before, and I had like overlooked it, maybe even deleted it. And something said, go back and open that email. And I don't know what. And so he was like getting ready for dinner, I think. And I got on my computer and I opened the email, and the very first property in that email was the property that we ended up with. And as soon as I opened it, I went, oh my gosh, like, is this possible? Because we kept running into things that would say it was a townhouse, but then it would really be classified as a condo. And so I'm like immediately texting our realtor. I'm like, can you find out if this is actually a townhouse, like immediately? And she did, and it was, and we drove out there first thing the next morning and didn't even have an appointment, but we just wanted to see like the area. And
well, we were so excited about this place because it had been on the market for one day, right? So we like, hey, let's go do a drive-by, right? We'll come to find out it was a gated community, right? And the one gate was open.
The exit gate
was open. It's like, we're going to buy this place. We're seeing it. We were on the schedule. Let's go in, right? And it's kind of one of those things. So we went in and we looked at this place. We walked around and we talked about this. We said, if we get inside and this is halfway as nice as the pictures show that it is on the inside, I said, we'll put an offer in that day with the agent. Fast forward to the next day, we
saw it that day.
We did see it that day. We saw it that day. Yeah, that's right. We went there in the morning. We went there at 9:00, and we saw it at 1:00, I believe. So yeah, we went in and we saw this place, and we're like, yeah, this is it. Like we knew immediately after all the other places that we had seen for the same price point, this place had so much more to offer. The other thing was it was beachside. Everything else that we looked at, well, you had to cross a road to get to the beach. So this was beachside.
And we walked down the sidewalk. It's like a private sidewalk to the beach, but literally.
Yeah, it's got a private walkway to the beach. The pool is right there in the front yard, lush landscaping everywhere. And we're like, yep, this is it.
And a high ceiling. We have a high ceiling in our great room in our house, and we built that on we added onto our house. And that's what, like, it was always our dream to have a big fireplace and big tall ceilings. And when we walk in our beach townhouse, there's a 26-foot ceiling with a huge fireplace that goes all the way up. And so I don't know, I feel like it's like that definitely like kind of snatched me, like tugged at me, like, ooh, I really like that.
Yeah.
So you and then the nerves start when you see it, you're like, oh crap, somebody else is going to get this, right? Before I want to hear, I don't want to like deviate too much. I want you to just tell everybody quickly the timeline, because I think a lot of people, that's important, because a lot of people assume that these markets aren't as hot as they actually still are, with inventory levels as low as they are. This is very current, right?
Yep.
So that was the end of well, we started looking for houses like mid-May. And then this particular, we looked, May to June, June to July. This was late August, the last week of August.
Late August of 2023. Yeah. So this is in the market that a lot of people have said has slowed down. And the reality is it's not. I tell people, I'm like, you guys, when you're in the acquisition phase, which we are all the time, we're always looking, inventory is low, and it's really low. And you start to make offers on things. And somebody asked me yesterday, how patient should we be? And I said, patient. You got to feel like and sometimes it's hard because you got to be making offers. There's never the perfect home, it seems like, but there's going to be that one that you're going to walk in and be like, yep, this one fits the bill way better than everything else I've looked at. And that's what you guys walked into, and you feel that, right? And then it gets exciting. Then you start to get nervous as heck that somebody else is going to get it, right?
Yeah. Well, it actually, we weren't excited, right? When I say we weren't excited,
we wouldn't let ourselves
get excited anymore.
You didn't want to get disappointed. You were trying to, yeah.
We had a contract fall through, and it was crushing. And so I think that we both at that point put a little wall up, if you will. We both kind of put our guard up and thought, okay, we will not let ourselves get excited until there are keys in our hands, because that was crushing. That was really hard.
Yeah. And so, leading up that timeline, so we signed up at the end of April with Vodyssey. We went through the program. Within 2 weeks, we had went through just about everything. And we really started to do the full court press on acquisitions, underwriting, looking at markets. Where do we want to be? It was late nights, every single night, sitting in the office, talking about things. The kids were like, what are you guys doing in there? And but we just kept on and kept on. And then as we got into, we visited Blue Ridge in May. We went to Miramar in June. We went to a couple of other places in July, and then in August, and then finally at the end of August, that's when we found this place, right? And then that's when the other part of the nervousness starts, right? It's like, all right, now we've got this place, right? We're in that loan process, right? Well, and to back up a little bit, we had looked at financing with another bank also. We ended up going with Jeff Chisholm's group with North Point for our financing, which worked out great experience there. But we had we had looked at an investor loan, and we had a great rate with that investor. We had a timeline, had a deadline in order to close. We had a 5.625 rate during the summer, which was a phenomenal rate.
That is really good. Yeah.
No PMI or anything like that. And so we qualified for that loan. The problem was we couldn't find anything to close. And so he's like, hey, I need something in the next week. Give me a contract in the next week, or I have to close you out. And we weren't able to close on a property. So we lost out on that good rate.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like you said, it was kind of one of those things, like all along the way, there would be little setbacks and disappointments. But in the end, though, I don't know, we're faithful people. And there were multiple times where it's like, I would ask God, and I would just say, like, hey, if this is not meant to be, I need you to close this door, like just close it, because I'll be too emotional to walk away if you don't close it for me. And so there were multiple times that happened, and it was obviously disappointing, but then we kept feeling like, okay, like I feel good about that. That wasn't for us.
Yeah.
And that loan was the same way. It was kind of like, don't rush and end up in the wrong thing. And in the end, we ended up with so much more than what we were looking at. I mean, like the difference for what we paid for what we were looking at in that same price was night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. And it's so important to make that point of, don't rush because of a specific loan that's going to close out. Don't rush because you're going to miss out on a tax deal by the end of the year. That's really applicable right now. We're in the end of October, 1st of November, and a lot of people are like, well, I just got to buy something because I know I need to take that tax write-off this year, right? And you don't want to let those decisions get you into the wrong long-term deal, right? You're marrying the property, right? That property is going to be with you in your portfolio for the long term, and you can always refinance on the rates when things change around. You can always do the same tax advantages next year and take advantage of what you're trying to next year. But that property has to be the right property, and it's awesome that you were able to get some of those closures, that you asked for, and saying, hey, listen, I need some help here and close some of these doors, because I don't know that I'm strong enough to close them myself. So that's I love that you shared that. I'm a faithful person myself, and I think that there's a lot of truth to a lot of that, and it's nice to be able to have that support when we need it. And even though sometimes the support doesn't feel like support, right? At the time it happens, right?
Hindsight, it's usually like, all right, cool, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we go through that process, so we got the new loan in place. We're working on getting it closed. Is it any hiccups from contract to close, or was was this one okay, or was it? I mean, because there are always hiccups. It seems like on every deal. I mean, I've closed guys on hundreds of properties, and I never feel like that. Unless I just write the check for cash, I never feel like that there's not an issue. And I'm like, really, you didn't get this from me in the first hour instead of the 11th hour, right? That we always feel like that.
I joked that the like moral of the story, like the undertone of our story was, what now?
Right.
Because
right.
it was like every time we turned around, they needed another document, or, oh, that wasn't the right thing. Now we need this, or we gave you the wrong amount for this. We actually need this amount, or
Right.
whatever it was, or just silly stuff. The locks got changed, and we were going to change the lock, and they'd already changed the lock, and then just little stuff. But
little stuff in the grand scheme of things when we look back, but while it's happening, you're like, really, I don't want to deal with this right now, right?
Yeah, it was pretty emotional for sure. Just the ups and downs of just like trying to make sure that we had everything, and again, trying not to get excited because it hadn't closed yet, and we closed virtually, and so we were, or not, whatever, remotely, and so they had to mail us the documents, and then it got delayed a day because of you had to have 3 days between the time you signed a disclosure and when you could sign, and just little things like that kept happening, and it was like, okay, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
And she had to bear the burden of the majority of it. I had to travel for work. And so that through the middle of the month, I was gone a lot. That's when a lot of the stuff needs to take place. Well, she had to take care of that. Then we had kids who were in all kinds of activities, theater, sports, you name it. And she was running the show. And so it was a lot of stress on her, and I'm off in a hotel in Michigan somewhere with work, and we're having conversations at night. She's like, I'm ready for you to come home. She's
right.
Like, this is getting kind of crazy and wild.
Trying to keep him in the loop and all of that. But it was in the end, they feel like little things now, but at the moment they all felt,
they don't feel like little things. Yeah. In the moment for sure. But so when you actually got the loan is funded, recorded, the house is yours, did you allow yourself to get excited at that point, or were you like, okay, now next steps are we gotta run down that next road?
Both, I think. Yeah. Don't you think? It was like we went out to lunch.
We were exhausted. We went out to lunch. It's kind of like, it's like, all right, we'll get excited here in just a little bit, but it's like, all right, good job. We made it through this. Here's the first piece. And I think when, like for me, it was, I went down there 2 days after we closed to start working on the place. I knew there was a lot of things that we were going to have to start doing, started accruing hours towards, bonus depreciation and all that other stuff. And I was like, I had a plan. I had loaded the truck up. And when I got there, it was one of those things I was like, wow, like the landscaping around it's just really lush. I was like, okay, this is why we did it, right? This is cool. I know I'm getting ready to get into a bunch of work. We're going to be working 14, 15 hours a day, but this is why we did it. And we're still in that phase right now, right? We love it. We were just there last weekend, and it was great. We worked our tails off. Matter of fact, I don't think we have fingerprints on our fingers anymore with all the stuff that we did, but there was the two of us, and we had fun going down there and doing that. And we see this place developing, and we're going to grow this place into this experience and this place. And so we have this feeling of, all right, we're going to enjoy this, but really we want others to enjoy this as well, right? And so now we're starting to get more and more excited all the time as we get closer to that point where it's going to be ready for us to put this on the market.
And the more invested.
And the more invested.
Like the more we're there. I feel like the first time I was there, like it was good, but this last weekend when we were there, it just, I don't know, just started to feel a little more real.
Right.
And like we walked down and watched the sunset. We saw the beach 2 times in 4 days because we just had work to do. But we walked down. And I was like, I just want to go walk and see the sunset. It was pretty last night. I could see it from Target when I was buying stuff for the house or whatever. So we like walked down the little boardwalk, and we just kind of stood there for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes and just talked and just watched it. And it was kind of like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah. And sometimes it's all it takes to recharge, right? Because it's very tangible now, right? That's what I tell people. There was a lot of work. Like Kevin, you say, I don't know that we had fingerprints left on our hands because we were working so hard. But you're there, but it's so tangible. You now own this. You worked really, really hard to make this happen, right? And that's, to me, where a lot more of the reward comes than, when you actually do, you guys will sit down have your coffee and, sit down and just walk on the beach and look at the sunset, and you're having that 15 minutes of, man, we did this and we did this together. Right. And that's really, really fun. And that's really, really, an intangible part of it. We always focus on just the monies and the dollars and the cents and everything else. But those are big moments in my opinion, especially that first one, right? You're like, man, we did this and we can do it again if we want to, but we pulled this off, and we've got this property on the beach, and we can walk down from our property that we worked so hard to get. And, those are the things that just get me so fired up and inspired. I love hearing that stuff.
Well, he taught me to grout. I was like, gosh, I've learned to grout a floor and mud drywall holes. And so it's been neat for sure.
Well, and one of the things with all the traveling that we've done, looking at various places, it's just been the two of us, and we've had so much fun. We have laughed more than we've laughed in a long time. We fussed a little bit too. So, but it was one of those things, but we had so much fun. We went to Blue Ridge. We laughed
about stupid stuff, just
stuff.
like car rides,
just car rides, right? And it was just, and we enjoyed that time together because, with having a family and we're working all the time, we're crossing paths a lot, right? But we have grown closer together through this process. And it's really been a lot of fun for us because our kids aren't too far off from, once they go to college, we got one who's going to be in college in 3 or 4 years. And then we just with twins, and 5-6 years for them, or 7 years, they'll be going off to college or going out and doing something else. And so it's just the two of us then, right? And so we've talked about this, like we enjoy doing this. We're not done with this first process.
But we've always renovated. We renovated our house when we were dating. I mean, this is we've kind of done these things, and so we said, like, how cool is it to build our portfolio, and like, this is what we do as the kids, like, this is our thing that we have together, that we we have our own hobbies, but we have this together that we can do, enjoy, and like build financial freedom and help our kids in their futures while we're doing it.
It's so fun. Yeah, it's so fun. And I love hearing those stories. And so we're right in the middle of setup right now, right? You guys are working on it, doing some reno, getting it ready. When is the launch date? Do you have an estimated launch date of what you guys are really planning on and trying to get it live on the market?
Yeah. So December 1st.
Right?
That's our goal. We said, we just put a number out there. It said December 1st.
Okay.
Probably going to be down there next weekend doing stuff.
We're going to go Thanksgiving and do pictures. And
Thanksgiving is the weekend we go out there to do pictures and things like that. And hopefully we have everything in order. Last weekend while we were there, we had we were going to do some painting. We were going to do some stuff, and we got thrown a curveball. We got into a bathroom, and it's on the lower section. We wanted to really feel upscale on the lower section when we're done, right? The bedrooms, we wanted to have those experiences, but downstairs we wanted to feel really, really nice. So we got in the bathroom and took some pictures down, and come to find out there was painted over wallpaper, sagging walls and stuff like that. Oh, okay. We're used to the wallpaper thing. We had that with our house before. So we're like, all right, let's go ahead and take this wainscoting off. Let's see what this thing looks like. And we knew we were going to replace the vanity. By the time it was all done, I said, you know what? Let's make this bathroom coastal. So I shiplapped the whole thing last weekend. She regrouted the floor, and you walk through it now. We don't have a vanity in there yet. We're getting ready to do that the next time we go down there. But the bathroom looks 20 times better than what it did before, and it doesn't even have a vanity in it.
And
right?
It's better than what our plan was,
and
but it was a setback.
It was a setback, right?
Right.
So we're like, all
making
right,
lemons out of lemonade, right?
Right. It's like, well, we got to do something with it anyways. Let's go ahead and
make it really nice.
Make it really nice.
Yeah, so, that's awesome. And
that's kind of the moral of the story.
And I would love your guys' opinion on this. There's something that I always talk about is that people confuse simple with easy, and a lot of times the things that we do are fairly simple, right? The process you're following is pretty simple for the most part, right? It's not rocket science. Pretty much anybody can do it. But would you say it's easy?
From a labor standpoint, I mean, it definitely takes
a while.
It's not. Yeah, right. I always
emotionally no. Depending on how fast you like the acquisition stage, emotionally that was very taxing on right? All the travel, we're spending money, we're doing all these things. The market doesn't have hardly any inventory. Prices are overinflated. So that was tough. The work part, it's physical labor. I like that kind of stuff. So it's hard work, but it's it's a labor of love, I guess you would say. I
Yeah.
don't mind doing that stuff where others might. It's
Right.
hard work, but it's enjoyable. Like at the end of the day, 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're like, oh, I'm done. But man, look what we got done today,
Right.
right? When you're packing up your tools and packing up the truck and heading out, you're like, we made a difference this time, but it's still
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah,
right?
It is.
simple and easy definitely are two different things that I've heard you talk
Totally
about.
different things. So I said a lot of things are simple. Path of success, pretty simple. What we're doing, building these portfolios, pretty simple, but it's seldom easy. And it's being able to, which is why not everybody does it, right? It's why we feel so good when we accomplish it, because we know that it was hard. We were able to roll up our sleeves, and we had the grit and the determination to get through the bad days and deal with some of the setbacks. And we didn't throw up the white flag and give up, right? And then we look back and we say, hey man, this is ours. We're walking on the beach, steps away from our property that we worked hard to get, right? And so the reward and the payoff is that much greater, in my opinion, because it's not easy, right? And it's not something that everybody is willing to do. Most people aren't willing to take the first step, which is why I love these conversations. I love these types of stories. I love working with people willing to do that. And it's so fun for me to be able to hear it, but not only that, to share it with other people. And I appreciate you guys sharing that, because it is, when somebody hears it, like you guys said, you started with a podcast, right? You started hearing other people's stories, and it's a way to pay it forward that, hey, listen, this can happen for you if you want it to. There's paths forward, and there's a lot of people that can, that have been there before you and can show you the way and the path. And the path is fairly simple, but you got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get things done. Now, that being said, that usually the really hard part is fairly short-lived. It's in the beginning of the process, in the beginning of that journey, right? Once it's launched and once you're doing all that thing, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have setbacks, but now it becomes the really hard uphill battle is right now what you guys are going through. And that usually lasts 6 to 9 months for most people, right? For you guys, it's been about 5 or 6 months right now, right? You probably have another, you're going to launch in a month. And so that's right about the right timeline. And most people, if they realize that and they put it into perspective, that's a really short period of time where you really have to say, okay, I'm going to get things done. I'm going to work harder than I'm having to work right now, right? I'm going to put in double time. I'm going to make some trips down. I'm going to do things, we're going to spend time learning the process and then implementing and taking action. And then if we do, we've got this thing built. And then guess what? Most of us decide to do again is do it all over again, right?
Like building a house, you say you'll never do it again. People do that all the time.
And they do it all the time. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned something, having that motivation, or being motivated by listening to somebody else's experience.
Yeah.
We listen to a lot of podcasts with other people who went through these same things. And it's like, yep, they can do it. Listening to the one where the guy's property burned down, right? We listened to that. She's like, hey, you gotta listen to this one. It's like, wow, they went through some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, they said we're going to keep on doing this, and they had that grit and determination to keep on moving forward. And so,
well, and it wasn't all just like people who were investors and had, $500,000 in the bank. And that was huge for us. It was like, it literally, I kept, it's like I would hear one, or he would hear one, and I would say, hey, you got to listen to episode such and such, because it just like spoke to us. They were people that had kids and were just working and doing, they felt like us. And so that was my motivation for reaching out to you, was just the thought that we could potentially help somebody who maybe didn't go back and hear those other ones, but maybe they're starting now and they might hear this and think, oh gosh, they're just normal people and they're working and they could do this and you could do it too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is. It's so inspirational, and you don't know who's listening, right? You guys don't know who's listening to this episode, and somebody that might be listening saying, man, I can, Kristeen and Kevin can do this. I could probably do this too. Right. And so it's one of those things that's it's really fun to share. And people always, it's interesting. I've been doing this for a long time, and we hear from, our members and people out there that they're like, hey, I really appreciate you just kind of being open with the good, the bad, the ugly, right? You're not really trying to filter out the hard part of this work, and which I think is important. I want people to walk into it with their eyes wide open. On the flip side, a lot of people in the industry and that I compete with, or, other people in mentorship groups that I'm in, they say, man, you gotta tone down the hard part of it, or people aren't going to want to do this. Right. And I feel the exact opposite of that. I said, well, kind of you be you, I'll be me. Right. And, but I appreciate hearing the grit, determination from people that are, we don't have, silver spoons in our, we didn't grow up with silver spoons in our mouths, and we had to go through hard times. And when you hear other people doing it, you're like, hey, I can do it too. Right. That to me is more inspirational. I like hearing that stuff, because the flip side of that is at the end of every episode, and we're kind of getting there anyway, so we might as well just run there and roll to that, is I always ask, if, knowing the journey, knowing the hard times, would you do it again? Is it something you would do it again? And do you have plans to do it again? And so I'd love you to speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, our goal is for sure to, we've got the beach thing now, and we love the mountains. We'll go back, it was not a never, it was a not right now kind of thing.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's hard to say that you'll do it again when you're in the thick of it and you're, like cross-eyed from looking at accent chairs and stock photos or whatever. But at the same time, 100% like I'm already thinking,
what do we do next? Right. And so, if we want to, we've talked about this before, retirement, we're still a ways away from retirement, but as we build our portfolio, eventually being, in that place that we want to be for retirement, right? Maybe these assets help get us to that ultimate location. Matter of fact, the people that we bought this place off of, they were selling multiple assets to go to their, what they call their forever home, their last beach house, right? And so it was kind of cool. It was like, what? That may be us, later on in 20 years, right? We say, what? We've got all these different vacation assets. Now we keep two. We spend 6 months at the beach, spend 6 months in the mountain, and tell the kids to catch up with us wherever we're at.
Right. Come join us, and we're whatever vacation home we're enjoying at the time, right?
Yeah. So
awesome, guys. Well, listen, before we end, the last thing I would like to ask you both is, do you have any advice? Like, you said it was really scary in the beginning, taking that first step is scary. Anything looking back that you would tell somebody or wish you could have heard yourself before you dove into the game, or, give yourself any of that advice of, here's what I would do different, or here's what I wish I knew going into it, or just had something that, because there's people out there that haven't taken that first step, and sometimes, or there's people that are right in the middle of it, like you said, in the thick of it, and you're cross-eyed and you're like, I don't know what direction to go from here. Anything that comes to mind of what you would love to tell your younger self before you dove into it?
Well, for me, even just speaking to people now, right? Find that network of people who understand and have knowledge, right? You're not by yourself, and thinking about this beforehand, before we joined the group, I wish I would have known how much there was from that network, right? And didn't understand all the availability of knowledge and experience that there was out there. Now, I think it would have helped me make the decision a little bit faster, right? And would make me more comfortable with, taking that leap of faith. And really, that was a big piece for me. But the other part of it is, even when you're in this, right, you just got to stay the course. You got to grind this out. It is long. It is taxing. So it's you just got to stick with it. And if you take the training that you've been given and you move forward with it, things will happen.
Well, and
awesome.
I would say it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I'll be cheesy because I'm a runner, and so I feel like that's a good analogy in the sense of, it's okay to, if you get tired, whatever, it's like okay to walk for a minute, and then you can always start running again. But it's like don't throw in the towel, don't quit, don't just go out of the gate so hard and fast, and then you're winded, and then you give up and you tucker out. Be the tortoise, not the hare, I guess.
Yeah. I love that. Both pieces of advice are huge, right? Understand that, hey, listen, there's other people that have run down the road before you, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to learn the school of hard knocks, which is a really expensive school, right? And so find those mentors, those communities, and obviously we've got great places to start at Vodyssey, and we've got such an amazing community. I think that by far and away the best in the world. And so if you're looking for a good one, we're here. But that second piece is exactly that. Take a step forward every day. You're going to have days where you're just feeling like you're running, you're full of energy. You just, you have it, but you're also going to have those days where you don't even feel like taking a step out the door. Right. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to take advantage of those days that you're running. But most of the days you're just taking a couple steps walking down the road. And before you know it, you're going to look back and think, man, look how far I've come. Right. And so exactly, like, don't give up when you have those hard days. Do whatever you can to pick that one thing to take that step forward every day. But it's okay to have bad days. Everybody has bad days. There's no person out there in the world that doesn't have bad days. And it's being able to say, okay, I'm not going to let the bad day stop me in my tracks and stop me from moving forward, period. Right. And so just keep the pace, keep moving forward. And you're exactly right. It is a marathon. This is a long-term process, a long-term journey. And really that front part of it is, I'm not a runner. So Kristeen, correcting me if I'm wrong, but I've heard from runners that first couple miles is sometimes the hardest miles that they're running. After they hit the couple mile mark, they're like, okay, I'm good now. You're right. Until they're talking about like marathons and they're 20 miles down, they're like, okay, those last 3 are really hard too, but I've heard that like that after you kind of get that momentum going, you're okay, right? Things are good. And sometimes people want to give up right in the very beginning.
Right.
So is that right? I don't know, Kristeen. Is that
100%? Like the first couple miles, you're just it's basically like you're warming up,
Right.
And then after that, then you're kind of more in cruise control, and you've got a pace, and so
I've never hit the cruise control for myself on a run. So you either, Kevin? We're not. Yeah, I've never hit that cruise control part. So I'm still waiting for that. Yeah, nice. Well, awesome, guys. Listen, I very, very much appreciate you sharing your story and joining us. This is really, really fun, and allowing other people to hear your story, be inspired by it, and being able to listen to it and say, hey, listen, there's a lot to relate to in your story. And so I appreciate you sharing it with us. And those of you that are joining us, listening, we always appreciate you spending it with us. We know how valuable your time is, and listening and joining us on these podcasts is very, very important to us. And we hope you got a lot of value out of it. You guys know, listening, I always ask you for 2 favors at the end of every episode. And that first one is, if you got some value out of it, or somebody who would love to listen to the show and would get value out of it, they might be in the middle of something like this themselves, please like it and share the show with somebody if you've got more than 30 seconds, whatever platform you're on, give us write us a review if it's on the podcast platform or YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening. Those things really do help us spread the message and share stories like this that are so motivational and inspirational. And that final thing that you guys know I always ask you is to pick one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodyssey.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.